Your contribution and debate that you are having to highlight some points, namely, competition is made in a globalized solutions, but that's still out of the applications in place. So we need to have a concept that can balance what is competition in global markets with good local practices aligned with best practices. If a service provider, France, that is our partner, has a bad logistic quality, can compromise our clients, can compromise the sector of the business, either textile or forest or wine, or, for example, of cork. So the needs that we have regarding management of the logistic process and in terms of logistic competences need to be assured in all the line of the supply chain management. We gain nothing and have, for example, a harvest of olive that it's amazing. If the transformation is not correct, the packaging is even worse, and the distribution, let's not even speak about it. We need to have the virtue, the excellence in all the logistic process. This is a challenge for a small national logistic operator. And why? Because when choosing the partners throughout the chain in which it is involved in, you need to ensure and have a similar inquiry to what we were saying before of the maturity survey or of what Elio was presenting, which was if it is certified or not, if it has this practice, that policy or the other or not. So concern is essential because it's not enough. The effort, having an effort to a constant improvement of infrastructures, to a constant of the information ports, the monitoring ports. These are the transmissions, the satellite improvement of the administrative processes aiming to improve the facility of communication and banking and intermodality of the transport system. And this is when the management from point A to point C that can go across continents or connecting two continents is managed by a single entity. If this can be made easy by the port authorities and fiscal authorities and customs authorities and transnational authorities, if the intermediate agents are not efficient, we are compromising all this process, right? And here, after having this sip of water, I would like to highlight. We have in Europe, and this is very important, we have some economic areas and logistic areas that are very important. And some way they balance the balance of world commerce, specifically of that area that has to do with industries that are quite specific and have high added value in Germany, Netherlands, and England, in the United Kingdom, in the south part of the United Kingdom, somewhat north also. But this industrial area has the ability of the logistic infrastructures that are quite signalable. If we see three of the biggest world ports and European ports are here: Antwerp, Rotterdam, and Hamburg. And then England developed port offers with high capacity. So this geographical access of the UK, geographical access regarding industry, service provision of logistics services and logistics support in all the transport means binds the center of Europe. So obviously the European Union has developed for a lot of years now, and it still has this project of developing other axes of communication and management of the supply chain in Europe, and global ones that are very important, Mediterranean lines that are very important, that are connecting the western and the oriental part of the globe, the routes of transatlantic with the United States of America and Canada that are quite important also. But there is a question here that's very needs to be well explained. We are not usually and historically regarding our industrial production and our lack of logistic maturity, we are not in any of these axes, the industrial axis or management of supply chains and logistic chains. So more than this, we don't have also a practice of taking advantage of other resources for a river flow. That's very important for the circulation of goods in Europe. So we are placing the question here: how are we facing this difference, facing the development or macro logistics of these central regions of Europe, including here this line that was from the different capitals that was to London, and how we are here regarding our lack of industrial presence in the same axis. So we can say here that our challenge could be similar to the challenge that it's not a peninsula, but the northern area of Europe, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, also presents a similar challenge. It's not immediately in line with the text that I stated before, but this country are more developed regarding the industrial sector that has specific industry giving them competitive skills. In the case of Denmark, it's much more developed regarding the production of butter and swine meat, and so they have developed models of transport that are much more developed, more mature in their articulation with the port of Hamburg and the port of Rotterdam and Antwerp. So including the railway, the circulation is more efficient in those places because all those countries are aligned with the European state where they have this handicap that we spoke before, which is the difference of the European regarding the European part. Spain has developed European parts for the passengers. They have carriages that have compositions that are adapted. Their interaction, capacity of transport, that has two capacities, standard European, that can be adapted, and the Iberian one. But this is only profitable when we're speaking about passengers, which we pay for a cost. That cost is much bigger than mentioned. So Spain never thought that it would be efficient or desirable to do that same conversion that it has been made for passengers for goods. So I want to make this clear, is that it has significant leaps. So for the Iberian standard for goods, we need to do the same for this logistic distance, for this industry by because this is not for Italy or France. So we want to go into a market of logistic solutions in management, great world changes of supply. So we need to take the port of sea. This is our reality as a port, a hub port, and a transshipment and great transfers of cargo for great route ships for the intermediate routes or short distance ones, short, okay? In that circuit, I would like to highlight that we need to develop all the processes of software components and component of infrastructure and structural operations in order that our efficiencies in the operation inland are at the same level of all the operations that are made inland in other regions that can be simultaneously complementary with Portugal. ports that access, that I told you before, all the access covered by the logistic activities of the Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany, and all the central area. Okay, so does this make sense to you? If it doesn't, I think that you could think about it and pursue this question. The industrialization of the northern part of Italy goes in the sequence of the same line throughout Central Europe. It's in line with Central Europe. So that's why everything that is logistic efficiency is a condition to Portugal. When Portugal is able to win some of the obstacles that have been stated, can have and will have in the competitiveness of the logistic offer, a cluster of its activities of business, the business core of the portfolio of economic activities in the world chess. Because this way we can find in our code highlighting ports of intermediate scale like ports of great scale like Flint, an attractive factor to certain European carriers can find a solution and probably more competitive. In order to do so, it's not enough that they have the modernization regarding infrastructure and flexibility and the implementation of areas of logistic activity. And what's that? It's somewhere that we have a typical services support associated to a set of other values. Logistic operators that pack and pack, withdraw product, add materials, aggregate, disaggregate, workshops, bank, hospitals, everything that are facilities that are needed for the port life and for the port activity has a capacity not only of passage of equipment, but of passage and utilization of materials and merchandise. Coming back to this, we need to accompany the development of ports in Portugal, as it happens in the other geographies of Europe, in Italy or in Spain, where Portuguese ports will compete with Spanish ports, Austrian, Valencia, where the Portuguese ports will compete with Italian ones and vice versa, in which each port needs to state its capacity, specific capacity, eventual specializations in types of cargo, and also keep a level of logistics service. And what is the activity, the specific activity of the port, more to what is the aggregate activity that is part of a port of the 21st century that aggregates in services and possibilities and empowers the transformation of goods. We can get to a port of goods which is, for example, a training outfit and sneakers. They can receive it there to create a kit to go into the market where you have all the three things together because someone was there in a relative proximity within or on the first or second line of the port, making this transformation, not to perform 500 miles to do this. So more than these challenges, there is a role also in which the European Union has an important factor in which governance is very important, where it is eliminating the obstacles to the circulation of great circulation of goods. And regarding Portugal, in order that state, and I'm speaking of scenes and I'm mainly Swiss, but now it's just logistics as a solution. As one of the economic solutions for the challenges of competitiveness of Portugal needs to overcome other problems. The issuance port needs for this to become a facility beyond the European standard of a railway. It's the inclination of the dependencies. Most of the lines that connect us to Europe, Spain, for example, it's obviously railway lines, are still target of some obstacles and constraints that come from quite steep lines in the railway, above 15%, generate a drastic decrease of the weight that can be pulled. This is a serious limit when we are addressing transport of big quantities. And the idea, this can seem like a lie, but we have compositions that have a lot of hundreds of meters when they are transporting containers. So our lines that with frequency are very steep and with a lot of curves. So in corners, when we have a significant set of wagons pulled by the same traction, it is impossible for the wanted quantity. So the changing the modernization or creating alternative lines that connect Portugal and namely the great axis, which is the north and southern axis of Spain in modern lines, is a fundamental challenge for us to keep continuing thinking on having a logistic offer expectably competitive to the ports of Rotterdam, Algeciras, Antwerp, and Hamburg. The scale of the ports today the competition can be done in distances at more than 4,000 kilometers. These clients are debated between the ports that can be far from one another on 4,000 kilometers. The port of Le Havre in France, when it has its business study plan, I had access to it. I was in conferences about that subject 4 or 5 years ago, I believe, or more. In the business plan, it went from the port of Hamburg, Le Havre in Hamburg, where you have the distance was a competitor also. So all the effort that was developed regarding intermodality of railway transport and river transport went to change business from Hamburg because the so-called transport of logistics, which is made in the continent, could be faster than the one that would come from the south. I need to go throughout all Europe to get to Hamburg, and this makes sense. So we in Portugal, we are still regarding in navigation that comes from the south of the Atlantic, coming from the Pacific or the Indic. We need to develop similar thoughts. If we don't, we are giving away our vision of being present on what is the great objective of reducing and transferring the roadway to maritime and railway. So we have two great constraints. One, we need to improve all the logistics chain inland that needs to be improved. Two, to improve and eliminate great handicaps with constraints of the railway development still brings to the maritime development. It is interesting to focus on the maturity level of railway transport is an handicap for the growth of the port activity for the maritime. So there's an excellent thought and an excellent comment to things is not to the maritime or the railway. No, in the global competition, they complement each other. So good practices in the good management of the logistic process inland need to be quantified because in the roadway also great constraints of infrastructure are overcome already because the Portuguese reality is not inferior to the best roadways in Europe. I can assure you that. After this, I have a case for you to work on in which it is evident intermodality. So here, I will ask you to work on this individually. And what I do want, Ellie already knows this document, is for you to analyze it and highlight the problems that this logistic solution wants to answer to, the benefits that the improvement wants to bring, and the main processes and actors that are involved here, weak and strong points of the solution, critical factors for success, type of logistic presence, and if the solution can be transferred to other sectors and other types of business. What I will ask you is that here, that you read the document and we before starting to answer whatever, please perform these questions, look at this, and then what you can do is to ask me things about the text if you have them, and then you can answer and send me like email until the end of the week. Okay? This gives you time to evolve. This is a simple answer. I don't want anything tricky. This is an A4 page is enough for this answers. I will give you the text. You can read it. The text for those who are abroad will be different. We have another one here with the same type of approach. Value. Two cases. Same model. So I will leave you the email for you to take notes here. Joanna, what's yours? So we will just share email. Twice the translators to perform these works also translate them. To identify the solution, the type of partners that are involved. To identify the problem that you want to solve. The type of solution that are found. Involve partners. Potential strong and weak points of the solution. Advantages of the solution regarding the previous situation. And if we are or not facing a solution that quite adapted can be reproduced to other activities, other businesses, other type of goods that are in movement, okay?
For me, this transport is not, it's efficient in a way. Efficiency has to do with the indicators of its performance. Efficacy has to do with the delivery. You can have efficacy in the delivery, but not be efficient. Can you make pressure cookers with a very minimum of aluminum, in a very short period of time with very low gas emission? So efficacy is something that everyone can attain, but only a few people can attain efficiency. Efficiency is to do well what has to be done. For many years, the certification could certify the fact that we could make a bottle without a bottom because we were still making the bottle according to the sign that was made. That was a bottomless bottle. So we had efficacy, but we didn't have efficiency because everything that would enter here would exit automatically. But we had efficacy. Efficiency is way ahead of that. It's to do what has to be done in the right way and with the best use of all the resources, the human factor, the materials, the machinery, the best method, the best management process, and respecting the environment. That's why you're speaking about efficiency. Efficacy, in terms of a composition of the word, is to be able to do something. Efficiency is the science of doing well. So if the Greeks are online, they might explain to us that the word has to do with it. It's the science of doing things right. Anything else? More questions? Okay. Go south. Everyone is ready to write and start working. Ask more questions. Josh? No questions. So I'll just wait. In the weak points, I found a few of them. There's only 8 vehicles in this case study, so we're a little bit limited. Well, it depends of the cargo volume, of course. Wow. There's still a constraint here is that they have a significant piece here that is made through public lanes, which means that public of this dimension can present a few problems of traffic. There's a limitation here that implies some specific management. We have to be aware that tides don't have time schedule. It can be in the morning, it can be in the evening. And this is a constraint. It depends on the tides. We're speaking about the port of Figueira here. Now, I would like, as a summary, for you to look at this definition here, or before this definition, I'd like you to look at this one, the definition of logistics. I'd like you to comment it. Read it very calmly. Logistics is the way to plan, implement, and control in an efficient way at a low cost the flux and the warehousing of raw materials, product and production basis, and finish the product, as well as all associated information and collaboration right up to the consumption point where you satisfy the service requirements to clients. So please find here a point you'd like to highlight here for us to comment on. want to comment? George, let's begin. Is it on? Yes, it is. One point that you find interesting, a part, a sentence, or the whole definition, if you wish, or the part of the control. So why do you highlight control? In the basis of what we've been doing, controlling all the activities that are developed in the whole logistic part, control them from the very beginning of since the production, before the production, at the supply, up till the distribution. What control it means is something else. It means that we need to have the whole logistic process duly fragmented. So we need the source, that is the supply, we have the production, we have the distribution, and of course we have the return then. So we need to have everything divided and analyzed step by step. The planning. Okay, planning. As well, in every step of the way. The planning also makes us study competitive geographies like Portugal, France, Germany, Spain, in terms of competition in the product, in cost, and also in the logistic process and the management of the supply chain, because the logistic process can make it more expensive or it can reduce the unitary cost of the product in the market where the partner is going to try and acquire the product. So planning is to identify strong points and weak points, possible improvements, to see where we can improve the situation. Is that what you meant? I also highlighted plan. Do you want to add something? Miguel. I went for the planning as well. Minimal cost and efficiency. I also selected the planning, but I think that the part about the market requisites about at a low cost is very important. Of course it is. So we have the minimal cost and the efficiency, important points as well. This brings us to a theme that we approached during the first day, and it was the competitive advantages of Mr. Adam Smith, in which in every country should specialize in the thing where it was most competitive, and it had most advantages and more experience to make it easier to produce. I also chose the planning. Well, everyone chose planning. We can also choose execution rates. It's very important because we have to make an execution, that is to do what has to be done and to do it well. More. Elio. I'm not sure how I'm going to say it, but I believe that this definition is outdated. What's missing here? I'm going to justify it now. Because I believe that at reduced cost and investment, it's very limited. It doesn't say reduced. It doesn't say reduced here. Well, minimal investment is a cost and minimum investment. Why? Because we could have to invest to create value. But Ellie, let me interrupt you just to say that a minimal investment doesn't say how much. We don't know if it's little or much. We still have to invest as little as possible to attain our objective. relationship. This doesn't mention little minimum doesn't mean that it's very a small investment. I could have to invest $10,000 or $10 million or pounds, and I can say that's the minimum cost to add. So it's not a little investment. But my observation has to do with the fact that we know that logistics, supply chains choose transport means, and so the cost by a transported unit is differentiated according to the value that the customer is willing to pay. So I can transport the same unit by seaways, airways, or by roadway. The cost is not the minimum cost, because the minimum would be the lowest. No, you're interpreting minimum as the lowest cost. Do you understand? Minimum. Well, the minimum cost is not the lowest cost, it's the minimum. And it's still very true today. It's without waste. That's what you were focusing on yesterday. Without any waste. So we need to have this challenge that is to producing, at maintaining the quality. And if I can do it at 10, why would I do it for 15? If I can have a lowest minimum lower than yours doing the same, that is a challenge. Well, in my perspective, we can change this component of minimum investment in a perspective to create value in terms of environment sustainability. So introducing a new criteria here, and something that's missing here in the definition of logistics is the focus on the customer in the perspective of the service integration after the sale, so the full life cycle. So here we hand it the customer and we don't come back. Yes, it makes sense. So we need to speak about logistics and the other optic as well. Now let's see this definition here. What do you think about this definition? Now let's begin with Elliot this time. What do you think about this one? Go on, Ellie. Now we're doing the journey the other way around. This definition incorporates here an important element, that is the information and the customer. It's a dimension that wasn't in the other one. Yes, this one complements the other one. What do you want to say about this one? I believe that it's more complete because it also mentions the material that is still being produced. Well, it's more specific, and that has to be taken into account in medium long-term planning. I believe it's more complete, but here we're not speaking about efficiency, but efficacy. Exactly. Well, but this is a problem of translation. Well, instead of lower cost, it should mention the minimum cost. Oh, you're paying quite a lot of attention. That's excellent. Of course, I already focused on the problem of efficacy here. Well, I commented with George that it's the same thing here, efficacy and the low cost. Here we should be thinking about efficiency and not efficacy, and minimum cost instead of low cost. George, you want to add something? No, that's it. This shows us the level of attention that we managed to attain. Now, I'd like to ask for your attention to the concept of logistic platform. This has a little bit to do with the the areas of logistic activity. The south, that is a European term, and I'd like for you to look at this. This is a logistic platform that is not a ZAL. ZAL is more than this. What I'd like you to say here to help you, in what measure this kind of platform is a competitive advantage for an export or import process. Try to guide your contribution in this sense. Claudio, can we begin here? Not to begin always with George E. Elliott. The lowering of the cost. The lowering of the cost, the waste of time. Okay, the time factor is definitely an advantage because we have a set of facilities that is close. Maybe the centralization of the merchandise for a determined destination. That can be land destinations, for example, starting right here to centralize and to disseminate delivery at the same time. The increase of energy among the several operators. Yes, Elliot? I believe that what's important here is to create value. Create value in the merchandise, and through the logistic platforms we can do this. Create value, but lowering the times and increasing efficiency. And not only because we can also transform the product. And the question here is that there are logistic platforms that are widely connected to industrial areas that we have nearby, and so they make the transformation of the product available and quick. There's not much to add, but just saying that we're all going to the same place. That's why we created this platform, to make the work easier for us and to increase our productivity. Everything they already said, it brings a value, it makes us save time. Based on everything that we've been saying during these last days, I would like to stay here and speak about the areas of logistic activity. An area of logistic activity is different from logistic platforms or from what we call the industrial areas, the polygons, by the degree not only of operators and service providers, but also by the level of integration and articulation between the agents that are in the platform, in the area of logistic activity, the port area, the railway installation, and all the prolongation of these activities in the chain in maritime terms, in terms of navigation of people who are beyond the pier. We have some examples in the Iberian Peninsula of logistic platforms, areas of logistic activity that are significant. Barcelona is an example. Sines, I believe that it's one of the best examples here in Portugal. It's the one that is closer to a ZAL that is thought with dimension maturity and without physical constraints. For example, ports such as Leixões have great natural and physical constraints in the development of an area of logistic say, for example, the presence of the old refinery here in Malaysia was constrained and created problems that didn't exist in Finch or in Barcelona. Well, it can be. The refinery, the greater problem that it had is that it was very close to the port, but also to a community of people and of cities that creates a factor of pressure on the population that reacts by going against all the ideas and processes of growth. But when the activities are further from these population agglomerations, when we do the analysis regarding the risk, it's much easier to come up with improvement plans. When the refinery isn't at the center of the city, it's much more complicated to plan this, of course, because there's a reaction from the population. So we have to see these constraints of the ports that are natural and the ports that were developed in the second half of the 20th century, and that can, in a way, have from the very beginning an answer to the problems that historic ports might have, because the population just came so close to them that it can be a factor of success, but it can also be a factor that makes the production more complicated. Here, for example, at Port Saint we have some basic constraints. All the populational and housing network is a limitation here. And we can say that the port of Lisbon, it's not only by the sea there. There's two margins here, and there's a much bigger estuary. So as well here, let's have a good level of the development of the activities that have to be started or complemented at the city, but they need to have some dimension. And something that we said here about the economy of scale, it's a way to be more efficient. Being efficient is not only about doing, but doing things well with the lesser community cost possible. And the scale factor is very important. That's why we have several kinds of ports that have to do with their dimensions, with the thickness of their areas, or with the technological solutions that we can come up with. For example, Rotterdam has constraints regarding, well, even though it receives ships with a great gross tonnage, but they have some specific limitations that makes it mandatory for the access channels to be controlled. And there are some moments where circulation is very limited because the security margins for the navigability are very reduced. And so the time that they had to work on the development of mechanisms in the port was great to be able to overcome that constraint they had with tide, because when tides lower, some ships can't stay there any longer. They have absolutely to exit. So they have great risk levels, but they developed technological solutions in such a great way, either through the cranes, with the management of the DTS, that are very important. And so Finch is the only European port of deep water that can be reached at any time. There's no limitation regarding the tides. This is a proposal, a value proposal that we can bring to our customers. The fact that they can come here 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So there's no limitation to the kind of ship. It can have the breadth, it can have any length, it can be any type of ship. All ships can enter here the port. No other port in Europe can have other conditions. Everything can be done every day of the year and 24 hours a day. since they have been doing successive updates with associations with international partners, for example, the Port of Singapore, that is the greatest world reference in terms of port. If we see in National Geographic, there's a great documentary about the port of Singapore, and some movies of 1 hour and a half, and I really recommend these documentaries because they're very interesting and they show the level of safety. There's a series really of aspects that you need to see and that will surprise you, also about the Rotterdam port, but they show how it's important to work well on land, but to control the geographic position and the position of the port, and everything is very important. That being said, the question that we were asking here was to try and understand, besides the limitations, technology in terms of hardware, in terms of software, physical infrastructures, ability to train people, integration of the operators and different agents of the transport modes. These are always solutions that can be applied and should be applied to strengthen the economy of each region, because we can say that since we don't have a port like this because we're in Rotterdam, then we just can't leave. No, we need to map the constraints and try to find logistic solutions to help the success of the production, the design, the success of the Portuguese wine and Portuguese pork to reach the market in a more competitive way. We have to offer our ports and our future railway structure, our capacity to be connected to consumption centers in Europe, to be an alternative to ships that come from the south route or come to the west from the east, for them to find in Portugal their doorway to navigate and to communicate with short distance navigation process and the roadways within the continent. I believe it's clearer. I hope it's more clear now than it was at the beginning. This is one of the conditions for the development of the economy and of the economic sector in Portugal that are indicated to the expedition, and it's also a condition for us to have another business, which is business in the global championship. Makes sense.
This being said, what I wanted to ask you is that each one of you in a sheet could identify two things. First, 3 ideas, but you can write more because I think that they will repeat themselves. Of course, 3 important ideas that you had about the supply chain and intermodality. Management of the supply chain and intermodality. I want that you have 3, but we are 6 people here, so if you have 8, 9, or 10, it's okay. So, second point. Eventually, what I would like to understand is that within the component of vision or commercial or operational, what ideas can you bring from here to your process of development and improvement of your professional activity? Okay? A and B. Okay, so go ahead. Do it. Is this clear? Do you get it? Abroad? Everyone abroad? Well, same thing for them. They can say the same thing. They can answer to the same questions. That would be interesting. The importance regarding main ideas about the supply chain and intermodality. And if they are professional, if they were professionals, what could they apply? You can check your notes, presentation. The wind tools that we spoke about, PDCA. Whenever you're ready, please send them to me by email, please. These ideas are for them. No, it's maybe you can give them here, but Claudia is going out. Give me later. So let's do this. Who wants to start? Now it's Gonzalo. We have online comments also. So Vasileios, his highlights are in accordance with what are the, let's say this, that intermodality can be and has been obtained through several combinations of transport routes by air, sea, roadway, and that can be whose study can be more profound according to the scale economy in terms of efficiency in fuel consumption and energy. Have to this according with those who are the targets of the suppliers of transport or services of transport, time, costs, speed. These are factors to take into account. After this, having taken this into account, the importance of the GIT. GIT is the consumption of the transported tons. This is a strong indicator in the context of efficiency, of intermodality of transport, and its methods. Exactly. Okay. Thank you very much. And what's at stake here is that our colleague from the Greece puts us is exactly that one. The articulation in combination with indifferent transport means having in mind the best relationship of transport at ton according with method, time, or cost. Well, regarding intermodal transports specified in the case that we just read, more than increasing competitiveness, it creates a solution, customized solution, according with the needs of the client. It's an innovation that being customizable with the needs of the client reduces traffic and environmental impact, for the reduction of fuel tires, and aggregates value to the supply chain because they will reduce the time of transport, the number of times that the truck needs to go there and gather things that you think that you can bring. We were commenting that regarding having another notion that the client does not stop in the company where it exports to, but me and Miguel, we have some ideas to think that the final client is not the company that exports, but the client that's abroad that will buy the bottle of wine, those pants, the trousers. So they are the ones who send all this process. Without them, there would be no cargo. Miguel. As Gonzalo said, I asked for his opinion, and there are three things that I want to try to implement in the company. First, to review our mission that I think is out of focus of reality, because we are not only a transport company. There is a lot to do during and after the transport where we can add value to our clients. Above all, competitiveness and productivity of both parts. So we, as logistic transport and the clients, this makes a larger basis for improvement. Starting the producer, supplier, we, the client, and a final consumer, to have all the chain trying to understand where we can enter and help the client creating the improvement cycles of all the process. Great, that's great. Vash, please. Well, my ideas, at the end of all these days that we are here, I think that this globalization, process management of supply, it will make for the processes that are efficient, to bring to effectiveness and efficacy. Or, on the other hand, efficacy is fundamental and it's included in effectiveness. So it's not enough to do. We need to know that we knew well what needs to be done, because we have employees that we know something repeatedly and do it good, but we don't ask why we do it and what's the value that we obtain from it. How many times do we repeat administrative tasks and we simply don't ask the value that we add? This is true, right? What does this bring of new? What comes from this? What's the difference? 1 plus 1 needs to be 2, but 1 plus 1 equals 1. That's our challenge. It's to be able to transform this question. It says 1 plus 1 at least 2 or something more, but 1 plus 1 equals 1. And if we look at the process of our supply chains, and if we look at the internal processes that we have n moments where 1 plus 1 equals 1, and this is something that we should fight to identify where within our organizations in the commercial, administrative, financial area, we have processes of 1 plus 1 equals 1. 1 plus 1 is equals less something than 1 because we already spent time and money. I don't know if you share this idea, but this is a great challenge, okay? George. From the importance of globalization in all the logistic process and of the efficiency that is brought from all the phases of this logistic process, as well as the importance of the efficiency in the minimum cost and the quickness of services. Measuring also, this is very important. The control in all the requirements in the phase of control of all the activities that are performed. I would like to highlight something also. The relation of management of the supply chain can allow us to have commercial approaches that within the origin of cargoes or in the destination, we can have approaches by geographies and sectors, and we can try to commercially find a vision, a strategy, and for the producers that exist in the region of Guarda, let's identify what are the main destinations that they have and draw a solution, creating a line, that there are navigation lines, a specific line associated with an exit for exports for Venezuela, Angola, or wherever it is, and offering a set of potential clients of the area a solution that can be competitive. Not that one makes a contract with us, but 1, 2, 3, 10 have contracts with us, and the condition for them to have that benefit is to have 10 entities with X volume of cargo with us to develop a logistic cooperative idea. You can get to one or another municipality. If you were to aggregate 10 colleagues from this sector or other, in which the profile is the Scandinavian countries, we are able to do this transit time, and we are able to reduce, to present a cost structure for service that is facing what the market is presenting, more efficient and more economical in 10, 20%. But we need this scale. And probably you are closer speaking to a colleague of you from the industrial area on the municipality of Guarda than me. I'm here at your disposal to come here 1 week, speak with everyone, and present a solution. Do you understand? I don't know if this can be successful, but these approaches are innovative in the component of those who are starting reading the supply chain. How can we do this? The logic of export, you can do it. Otherwise, we are 100 industrial agents. Where do you have your raw materials? Let me draw the same solutions to bring effectiveness and efficiency. Am I clear? Cooperative logistics has to do with the innovation of logistic agents. And innovation is not just to discover vaccines. Who's missing? Ellie. So, 3 ideas for the management of the chain. I believe that according to what we have spoken here, This change of minds has brought changes in the plane of governance of the companies, of our companies, private companies, and of the companies who are managing infrastructures. And therefore, we have examples of new challenges to ports. On the other hand, we spoke about the dimension, which is information management, between the different intervenients in a supply chain or logistic chain. And here, clearly, information needs to go through different intervenients, and we need to stop thinking about our own problems. We need to start thinking about the problems of everyone who participates in that chain. And so, taking this idea that you just spoke before, I bring the concept of the co-opetition, which is a cooperative competition. We don't need to be friends of each other. Each one has its role. But if we are able to, together, find solutions that all can benefit from, the more the better. Just to finish, the last idea is, to me, a bet in creating value and in the sustainability of processes. In a point of view of vision, processes of improvement. If I were an active intervenient, and I'm not, I would bet in a study of adaptation and implementation of the logistics single window. I would bet on consolidation cooperative networks between the different stakeholders of the Leisure-Sport, of the Zalwishuis, and of the airport platform. If I was an active intervenient, and I think some of you are, to think clearly about the great advantages of this strategy. Okay, a good contribution here, and you have brought a good contribution also. And I use this for two things. First, tomorrow, the theme that I think we'll work on is maritime logistics in integrated supply, a value chain, and from joule to joule. We are speaking about single windows. And this is a development or a possible, it will be a clear statement of the theme that we'll see as agents of active access of the process can benefit and develop commercial processes and operational in this logic. Then we'll speak about the e-maritime systems that manage information of these idea, to have a notion of what is possible to do. You have two more themes, information management systems, and a development and an exhibition about the international projects and national projects that are effective, specific in the maritime and intermodal transport. Okay, so you have 3 more days in which you have a set of training actions with experts in the area of maritime management, either in the component of maritime management associated with intermodality or new developments in Europe and international ones, and associated also with new administrative tools to simplify administrative like JOOP and JOOL. And from the general basis of the supply chain will allow us to have thoughts and conclusions and a suggestion of ideas and themes that will be useful for the next years for your activity. From me, I would like to thank you for your level of attention, your level of participation, and after that first moment it was very good, and I would like to thank for being attentive, for the consideration, and to wish you the best. You have my email. I'm available for you. I would like to thank you for your contribution, for a balance and evaluation and summary, and a lot of personal and professional success to you. Thank you. For those who are abroad, thank you for being attentive to me during 3 days, many years of conversation of everything, and thank you for the contribution. Thank you for the translators also, and to Joanna as a moderator for all our support that has been throughout all this process. Thank you.